Well, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to welcome you to the Intivix Cal Insurance Cybercrime Prevention webinar. My name is Raffle, founder of Intivix, where we specialize in helping small and medium-sized businesses manage their computer network infrastructure, so our clients can do what they do best, which is run their business and not worry about IT and technology. I just want to give you guys a few housekeeping tips while we get started here. We will have a couple of polls during the presentation. Questions will appear on your GoToWebinar screen, so go ahead and please submit your responses there. The seminar will be recorded, so if you'd like to review some of the information later at your convenience, we'll go ahead and make that available to all of you guys. And we're happy to take questions during the course of the webinar, so we would like to make this collaborative as much as possible. So feel free to chime in as things pop up. If you'll notice in your little GoToWebinar chat window there's going to be an option for questions. Click on that little plus sign and then go ahead and type it in, and then we'll get to it as we go along. There's also going to be some time for Q&A at the end. So I'd like to introduce my partner in crime here, Joe DeLupi. He's president of Cal Insurance. And Cal Insurance has been a leading provider of insurance solutions in the Bay Area for the past 80 years. Native San Franciscan, 5th generation, so join the club. I'm also, I guess second generation San Franciscan,
all right.
Another native born. And both of us love the Giants, and we're kind of disappointed about it.
It was a heartbreaking night last night, Rob. Well, thank you very much for that introduction. Actually, Cal will be turning 90 next year, believe it or not. And yes, the bullpen was a difficulty for the Giants all season long, and eventually it caught up with the team. So onward to Sharks and Warriors. All right, well, I want to introduce Rob, who is an expert on cybersecurity, and you just heard that a moment ago. He is the president of Intivix and the founding partner as well. Intivix was founded back in 1996, and so it's celebrating its 20th year this year. And Rob really has a passion for personal security, not only from a personal standpoint, where he is a student of Aikido, the Japanese martial arts, but also with the cybersecurity. And so I'm excited to be a part of this webinar. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. All right, so with that, why don't we talk about a special raffle prize. So you're going to need to stay until the end to get Office 365. So there will be one lucky winner at the end, and they'll have a free 1-year subscription to Office 365 Home Edition. Anything else you want to say on that, Rob?
Yeah, so that includes full version of Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all that kind of stuff, and you can install that on I think up to five devices: your iPad, your iPhone, and your home computer, and things like that, and you can take advantage of a lot of the cool features that are available in Office 365.
A special gift. The price is priceless. All right, so let's talk about our cybersecurity goals for the day. Number 1 is to define ransomware. What the heck is this ransomware all about? So we're going to dive into that. Number 2, we're going to understand how ransomware works. Number 3, we're going to recognize the new trends in malvertising, another new word here, new to me at least, malvertising and ransomware. And then finally, we're going to learn how to prevent ransomware breaches. All right. So, Rob, can you please help us out and define what is ransomware?
Well, ransomware is a type of malware that gets installed on your computer or server, and it basically encrypts the files, which makes them inaccessible until a specific ransom has been paid. So this has been, I'd say this has started to become more of an issue for businesses over the past year and a half now. Up until prior to that, this was really like a home computer one-off type of thing. And it's kind of the idea was that it wasn't super malicious back then. It was just more annoying. It's kind of, they had this concept of, I called it Scareware.
Okay. It's a nuisance.
Yeah, so the nuisance. And then eventually hackers said, hey, well, let's see if we can make some money off of this. And they decided, hey, well, let's encrypt people's files. And as part of the virus infection experience.
When you say encrypt, that means lock people's files?
It's basically locked. So if you tried to click on some Word document that you had in your My Documents file folder, it would say, hey, this file is encrypted. It wouldn't allow you to open it. It changes the extension of the file. And so the only option at that point is to, if you notice on the screen here, there's this kind of countdown time left, 71 hours to go.
Okay.
So the hackers are basically saying, okay, you know what, you got a countdown timer here, and once that gets down to 0, if you haven't paid this ransom, I'm going to go ahead and delete the files of the computer.
But the way I understand it, if my business computer is infected with this ransomware, this is really the only thing I can see. I can't even get past this screen.
You can't get past this at all, so you're basically stuck.
Right.
And so over the past year and a half, this has started to make its way from kind of home consumer users into, because now obviously hackers have realized, this is an opportunity to make some money and kind of inconvenience people. And so the problem is when you start getting this involved in their integrated into a network environment, a computer, like a business kind of situation, this is costing companies serious money at this point, because you're basically dead in the water until you deal with it.
Absolutely. If Cal Insurance is shut down for a day due to this ransomware, I can't even think about the economical and reputational damage, and I know we'll get into that a little bit later into our slideshow here.
Yeah, well, maybe just talk about how do people typically get this kind of stuff. So usually it's going to be either through an email, and it's going to be what's known as a phishing email, and that's going to have some ransomware in it, and people click on the link or click on a file, and then it infects the computer. There's also the option of, you go to a website, and sometimes websites can get infected, and they have malware on the website itself. You click on a link, and it infects your computer that way. That's called what's known as kind of like a drive-by download. So you go to a site, you click on something, it's infected. It could be a legitimate website as well. That's where we kind of get into the malvertising part of it.
Sure.
And so I'd say, basically the predominant vector mechanism that people are getting infected is through email, typically.
And some business cyber insurance policies now are starting to include ransomware and business interruption through ransomware attacks onto their cover form. Again, it's the cyber liability world is a bit of with the insurance carriers, a bit of the Wild West. Everything's all over the map right now, but there are some carriers I'm starting to notice offering this as a coverage extension. Should we forward on to our poll question, our first poll question of the day?
Yeah, we could get that started here.
Okay. So, poll question number 1. Have you, or do you personally know someone that has been infected with ransomware? Quite simple, a yes or a no. And Rob, what do we...
So it's kind of fluctuating a bit here.
What are we saying?
It's 2/3 yes, 1/3 no. So
it's almost in line with the statistics that we're going to show in a little bit here.
Trending up a bit here. Now it's up to 72%. Yes. So 7 in 10 almost.
Okay. Yeah. So let's close that poll and agree that it's a significant number of our participants know or have been personally infected with ransomware. Okay. So what's the current state of the union, Rob?
Well, so there's basically at this point several kind of, I guess, families or strains of ransomware. There's about 5 or 6 kind of families of these kind of infections. And so there's these variants that kind of spawn off of these various kind of families, right? And so what ends up happening is most of the, as one particular ransomware infection gets discovered and modified, or gets discovered and blocked,
right.
The hackers are basically making some minor modifications, and then the new one spawns out. And so this is kind of propagating and kind of spreading this ransomware.
But now, I've got to ask, wouldn't antivirus software catch this at some point?
Well, typically they're supposed to, but because there's so many threats and so many different types of malware that are released, it's kind of depending on where you get your numbers, anywhere from 400,000 new malware variants every day up to 1 million. Those are the kind of the range of numbers that I've seen from various kind of security reports.
So this ransomware is evolving every minute of every day?
Yeah, and so that's kind of like, if you think about just how traditional antivirus works, they work on kind of like, it's more like a signature-based kind of thing. So if you have a definition, right? A virus comes out, the virus company fixes it, blocks it, updates their definitions, and then eventually you guys download it to your computers. And
this is like flu season. We're entering that right now. A new strand of the flu that comes out every year or what have you.
Exactly. So it's kind of like this amorphous changing thing. And so what ends up happening is that the antivirus vendors just can't keep up. And so minor modifications are kind of made to these ransomware infections, and it catches it yesterday but doesn't catch it tomorrow. So that's kind of that's where the kind of the prevalence of this thing is starting to increase. It's like 7 out of 10 people are now know somebody who has some personal experience with this.
I think the bottom line is this threat is real.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that there's kind of like these kind of delays in the virus vendors coming up with these protections, getting those protections downloaded to the computer. So there's kind of like this window of opportunity for these types of new ones to basically infect your computers, right? So that's kind of what we're dealing with at this point.
So let's transition here and talk about how many folks are actually, both individuals and businesses, that are reportedly hacked annually. I mean, these numbers could be higher. These are just
I would actually say that these numbers are actually low.
Right.
The FBI, so there's an actual website which will pass out. It's actually ic3.gov, which we'll post that in the minutes for everybody. But basically, the FBI has basically said, hey, I want to get a better understanding of how prevalent this is. And so there's this ic3 website.gov. Is basically they're reaching out to everybody in the business community and saying, hey, if you get infected with this stuff, regardless of whether you pay a ransom or not, we just want to get some true numbers around the infection rates.
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically kind of putting out some kind of bulletins asking folks to go ahead and please submit and let us know that you actually had this type of infection, whether or not, whatever you decided to do with it is separate. Well, let's get some real numbers. But in fact, we're seeing that of the folks that are getting infected with ransomware, only 1 in 4 are actually reporting it to the authorities. So it looks like it's pretty underreported. And so the FBI is asking for us to kind of submit these numbers so we can get some better.
And who are they targeting? Who are the bad guys targeting from the business community here?
So typically it's going to be more professional services organizations.
Okay, makes sense.
You see this a lot in healthcare, automotive, construction, manufacturing. So it's kind of like a wide swath of the industry. Anybody that has, obviously data that's important to them, professional services, obviously. Healthcare has a lot of personal information, things like that. So that's kind of ripe for opportunity. Automotive, they're considered financial institutions at this point. Construction. But what's interesting is that there's kind of a disconnect actually between like what the kind of security-minded folks, IT folks, like how prevalent do we think ransomware is as a kind of global scourge,
right?
Compared to what small businesses think. So if you go ahead and poll a lot of IT providers, 95% of them are going to tell you, hey, this is serious because of the potential downtime and serious implications that an infection has.
If it gets in there, it's going to grind any business to a halt. If Cal gets hit, our business will be stopped. I mean, we're at a halt right there, and the same with my clients as well.
And if you kind of think about just the amount of information that people have, it's not uncommon now for a small business to have several terabytes, 6, 8, 10 terabytes of data. And you think about if that infection hits one of their, the file server in a network, your option at that point is to, restore from backup, or pay this ransom, right?
All right.
And you think about how much time it takes to a large data set. It can take hours to a day or two, depending on how large that is and how fast your backup solution restores. So, in the meantime, people are kind of twiddling thumbs.
Well, this leads into our next poll question. Should you, the business owner, pay the ransom if you get infected with ransomware? So this is poll question number 2. This will pop up on your screen in a moment, and then you can simply, here it is, You can simply select yes or no.
Yeah, just kind of get an idea. Just what do you think is the current prevailing wisdom as to whether or not it should be paid or not?
And are we having some results come through?
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of changing a bit here. I got 20. Actually, it's going up to 30.
30% saying yes.
30% saying yes.
Okay.
Majority saying no. And
how are we settling in?
Yeah, so I think it's 1 in 4.
1 in 4 believe that they should pay ransomware should they get infected with an attack. All right. What does the FBI tell us?
Well, the FBI has just changed their recommendation on this. At this point, they are recommending that customers, their clients, end users do not pay the ransom. And here's why. So of the ones, so let's kind of back up a bit second here. So of the folks that have been infected with ransomware,
yes,
63% of those businesses that have been infected with ransomware have had some sort of business-threatening downtime as a result of the infection. Of those that got infected, 48% of those have lost data.
Okay.
As a result of the infection.
So they paid the ransom.
So this is just kind of this bigger picture ransomware infection.
Yeah.
63% downtime, 50% lost data.
Yeah.
Of the ones that paid the ransom, 42% have reported that they actually went ahead and paid the ransom.
So almost half.
Almost half. Yeah, about 44 out of 10 or so. Of those 40% that paid the ransom, 25% of those, so basically about 10%, got the data back, even after paying the ransom. So
they paid the ransom and nothing changed for them.
Nothing changed at all, and they basically just lost their money and their data. So they got really screwed.
Right. Not serious threat.
Yeah, so basically based on that, the FBI is recommending at this point that we do not pay the ransom. So similar to terrorists trying to exploit you, same sort of thing. We don't want to negotiate with terrorists, quote unquote. Same basic idea with ransomware infection.
So about a year ago, we decided at Cal, and as I mentioned earlier, Intivix is our IT partner here. So Cal and Intivix decided it was time to decommission our servers internally and move everything to the cloud. And I thought that was a very safe transition, a very safe idea to protect our software, our data, our clients' data. So if I'm on the cloud, and I am I safe?
So ransomware will infect you even if you're in the cloud. So it's not the end-all, be-all in that regard. Dropbox has had ransomware infections. Even Office 365 has had some. Box, Google Drive. So any kind of a file storing, kind of file sharing type of application, cloud-based application that has corporate data has had ransomware infections.
So it doesn't make a difference if my servers are on site or I'm in the cloud or my servers are off site. Does not make a difference. I'm still not immune to this. Now, the key, and Rob and I were talking offline earlier here, he could not stress backing up the data enough. And can you talk about how to back this up?
So let's talk about this. So if the FBI is telling us we don't want to pay the ransom, or
right,
we shouldn't pay the ransom, then we're kind of limiting our options in a way, right, as far as getting our data back. At that point, we're basically relying on our backup and restoration process to get that information back to us and usable, right? Because we're not paying the ransom and getting it back that way. So basically, the importance of a really good, solid backup and restoration process, disaster recovery kind of option, is even more critical, right? So how should this be kind of architected? How should you think about this? Well, you definitely want to have some sort of local backup. So you're doing backing up to a hard drive, you're backing up to some sort of backup appliance of some sort. Ideally, you're going to replicate that to another location off-site, right? You do that from kind of a disaster recovery type of scenario. Like if I have, like, Cal Insurance has their local server and they do local backups if there's an earthquake or some sort of natural disaster, fire, or flood, your data's there, right? So you want to be replicating that into an off-site location that's secure. And then you want to couple that with also some sort of archive process, whether you're going to do a quarterly backup or a monthly backup or a yearly backup, whatever that interval is that makes sense for your business. You're going to have that as kind of like a point-in-time backup that you can always refer back to. So, the other thing about backups is depending on how you structure it, you're going to be, eventually potentially, overwriting backups after a certain period of time. So what is that retention policy that makes sense? This is something that the kind of business has to answer for themselves. How frequent do I want my backups to be made? And it kind of factors into what kind of downtime, what's the effective downtime?
Right. So the question, if I'm a business owner or on this webinar right now, I think the main takeaway here is that after this presentation, call your IT partner to figure out what the game plan is should that ransomware attack happen. What is the game plan? What sort of backup plan is in place?
Yeah, and also I think it comes back to what does downtime cost? What is the effect? That's going to kind of that metric is going to kind of point you towards how robust my backup solution is.
And I understand there's a bunch of different downtime calculators that are out there, and one could use in order to determine the potential loss of business. But besides that, it's the reputational hit as well. That I don't know how you even can calculate the reputational hit, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're servicing a bunch of clients and you can't access your data and they're calling you on the phone and you're down, that has impact on your reputation, has impact on your business productivity. You guys are losing money. So what is the amount of time, what is the productivity and financial hit that you're taking when you guys are just kind of out dead in the water for a period of time? And that's going to go ahead and dictate or guide you towards how robust your backup and restoration are.
Well, as a business owner, your concern is every minute that the staff is down is a minute where we're losing out. Exactly. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun and look at our subject here. Yeah. Let's have some fun and look at a couple of different phishing examples and see if we can point out how we know this is actually a phishing scheme here.
Yeah, so we mentioned that the predominant way that people are getting this is through email phishing attempts.
Yes.
And so these are basically, what's a phishing email? Phishing email is a carefully crafted email generally that has logos and information for reputable companies that you may be doing business with, and they're effectively trying to trick you into giving them your personal information.
Right, and I've seen an email very similar to this example here from American Express. Heck, I might have even gotten this exact one.
Yeah, so, but kind of phishing, it's gotten a little bit more sophisticated over the years, but as this is kind of like a classic phishing email attempt, that is not super sophisticated, but this is kind of how things started about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So there's some common places that us, in order to protect ourselves, need to be kind of cognizant of and suspicious of. So if you notice here, I'm going to skip to the next screen here. Checking the from address. Who is sending this to me? And basically, hey, it says from American Express, but the domain name is an unrelated domain. So it's from collectionz.com.
Right. Any major business.
Any major business is going to be obviously from American Express, right? And so we're also going to include some kind of links, down below here. And by just kind of putting your mouse on somebody who's just hovering, not clicking, just hovering, you're going to see a little pop-up show up that's going to be the actual domain or URL that this link is going to send you to, right? And you're going to take a quick cursory look here and, again, see if it makes sense or not, right? They're also going to be asking you for, maybe there's other links in here, the malicious downloads or like files, like in the next example here. This is from Wells Fargo. So again, Wells Fargo memberservices.com. Again, it's kind of an unrelated domain. And if you notice there's an attachment here, which I'll point out here.
So you're in trouble once you hit that attachment.
Yeah, once you click on this particular attachment here, you've basically probably infected yourself with malware. So let's kind of click on our next slide here. So that's kind of like areas where, again, the other thing is like, kind of the salutation. Is it kind of a generic thing, or is it just is it your name? Typically, they're going to go ahead and the more sophisticated, and we'll get more sophisticated as we go here, but it's going to be kind of more targeted to your information. It's going to know your name. Maybe they do some social media lookups on you and get some kind of information on some of the stuff that, where you shop, where you buy, just things that you like. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of using that against you in a way to kind of craft more specific types of attempts, right? But those are kind of just general things. Here's another one from LinkedIn.
Well, I think actually we went back to that slide just real quick there.
Yes.
That big takeaway that you have is the fourth item. Wells Fargo, any bank for that matter, would not have you download a file to your computer.
Absolutely.
That to me looks like the biggest takeaway to teach, to educate our own staff here at Cal on.
Absolutely. So they should not be, just double check the links, any sort of attachments. It's just kind of, people kind of scan through stuff pretty quickly, right?
Yes.
So it's a question of like, if you have any sort of hesitation, trust that instinct. Be suspicious, take your time, slow down a bit, and take a look at the kind of ins and outs of this particular email, because it's going to potentially cause a whole bunch of other issues for you later, and you kind of don't want to be the one where, I wish I hadn't done that.
Of course.
Because you rush through things a bit.
So we've talked about phishing attacks. You taught me a new term before this webinar started, and you taught me a term called spear phishing. Yeah. So there's not just phishing, but there's also spear phishing. What the heck is spear phishing?
So spear phishing is it's a little bit on the newer side. This has been going on for the last 6 to 12 months. Now this is a phishing attempt that's even more targeted than, if you look at the first two examples, are a little bit more generic, right? Probably a little bit easier to kind of suss through and kind of figure out. But this particular last one here is this. I have information here. It's going to have my name in here. So if you notice up here, right, kind of block out the person's name. This has some personal, Dear Joe, take advantage, Dear Joe. Spear phishing is hackers are more targeting specific executive level, people that have positions of power or authority, and using kind of different mechanisms to gain some information, gain some intelligence. So they can go ahead and craft even more nefarious types of phishing attempts that contain, again, this kind of ransomware and malware that are going to infect and allow you to inadvertently give me personal information, login, passwords that allow me as the hacker then to turn around and
target you. Take it to the next level.
Take it to the next level. So the term is considered to be spear phishing. So again, if you think of it, just the analogy of it, it's just a very targeted, direct connection to someone that has some information of value or is in a position of some kind of importance or power.
I think a big takeaway, and we message this to our staff here at Cal, is when in doubt, this doesn't seem right, it seems a little off. We were discussing earlier, better to be safe than sorry, and report that email to Intivix, whoever your IT partner is, your security operations person, if you have one in-house. And if it turns out to be a legitimate email, no problem. But again, better to be safe than sorry, and get that security expert to take a look if you think something's amiss. Okay, so let's continue onward.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about this LinkedIn one. So this is actually a valid email, actually. So this actually has, but again, this is a little bit tricky. If you look at some of these pop-ups here, where it's kind of e.linkedin.com, that potentially could cause a little bit of suspicion for folks.
Yes.
Because it's not LinkedIn.com.
I'd be right.
Right. So it's again, this is kind of like kind of taking that spear phishing that we were talking about before. So this could have some minor modification on it. It looks really legitimate. It has it knows your name. It knows your personal email, so it's one of those things just to be kind of cognizant of. So as we move into the next section here, we have website phishing examples. Okay, so what happens? Let's go back to the idea of the first email that we saw, where there was a URL link, right?
So I click on that.
So I click on that link, and once I click on that link, I'm going to go ahead and go to a website, right? Now, in website phishing, what happens is the bad guys have created, domain names, and created a website that looks very similar to that legitimate website you just clicked on. Hey, we clicked on this Chase, in this example, this is a Chase website, and it looks pretty good. It's got all the icons on it. It looks pretty legitimate. It's got different sections about my mortgage rates, and it looks like it's a pretty good site, right? So
yeah, at first glance, this looks legit to me.
So then what happens if I go ahead and log into this site? I'm going to put in my username and my password to my Chase account, right? Well, in this case, this is actually a fake site. And how do I know it's a fake site? I know it's a fake site because of the URL in question, and because if you notice here, like this HTTP, right? HTTP, and if you notice, if you've gone to Amazon and you buy something online, it's always this HTTPS, right?
Does S mean secure?
S means secure.
Okay.
So that means that that website has a certificate, a secure certificate, that is encrypting that connection from my computer to that website. Right?
Now, is it just a matter of time before the bad guys start using HTTPS at the end?
Yeah, so then you're basically back to looking at the website itself. So HTTPS is used by most of the major vendors, online retailers, they're all going to be redirecting you to HTTPS. That's kind of a common section to look at. If I go ahead, just one thing to note, with HTTP, if I submit any of my information in the form, or if I log in, that information is being transmitted in what's known as clear text, just plain text. So if I'm kind of sniffing on that connection, if I'm managing that website, that form is coming to me, and it's just basically going to say, Joe DeLupi and Joe's password. There's no encryption, nothing, right? So just keep in mind that when you go HTTP, all of that is unencrypted. So HTTPS is where you want to be for any sort of legitimate website where you're doing any sort of, kind of confidential or high value kind of work.
Okay.
So just something to kind of keep in mind for this picture there.
Good takeaway. And then the other takeaway, of course, was about that website address. It should be chase.com, not all the extra language.
Yeah, so that's chase.com. So they basically what happened is the hacker said, I'm going to go ahead and reserve the domain name mychaseonline.com. And if you notice, like if you log into some of these sites as well, once you log in, sometimes it does its own kind of internal redirection because it's like, a lot of these kind of sites or like even kind of banking sites, they have different partners that they work with. And so there's this kind of redirection that happens within the website, and legitimately, right? Because it's going to different partners.
I would imagine, though, that Chase has internal cybersecurity folks that are out there all the time looking for anybody that has the word Chase in their domain name. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
They are. But this is kind of like, this is one of those whack-a-mole things, right? Where you got, you're just trying to get some, the hackers are smart enough to get some variants on websites.
So this one's going to get shut down by Chase's cybersecurity folks.
Chase is going to eventually find this and stop it. The other thing that a lot of legitimate websites are going to do is that we'll kind of get into the next section a bit. Is like, but they're also constantly or should be constantly checking for infections on their own sites, right? So we'll kind of get that into the next section. But here's got one more example for you guys. Another website phishing example. So again, this is another Citizens Bank. Couple kind of quick giveaways that this is a fake site. If we look at the domain name again, is Citizens Bank 21. It's kind of a dead giveaway.
It kind of goes back to that last one where maybe they were citizensbank20.com before that one got shot down. So they're with 21 now.
So I think the bigger one is actually this section here. So this section here is basically asking for some personal information. It's asking for too much personal information, ones that you should never give out anyways as part of the login process. Because at this point I haven't even logged in, and it's asking for account verifications with my social security number and all that kind of stuff.
Shouldn't it just be name and password?
You're going to basically, well, kind of depends on how the site has architected its verification process. Normally it would be login, username, password, and then maybe set up the two-factor. We talked about that.
The two-factor from episode number 1.
Yeah, we talked about that before. That especially for just for those that missed it, we can just kind of circle back on that a bit. For any sort of high-value website, whether it's a bank or your iCloud or your Dropbox account or anything of value that you use in your personal or business life, highly recommend going ahead and turning on what's known as two-factor or multi-factor authentication. And that's usually a setting within your account when you log into the site. And basically what it means is you're just going to go ahead and put in your cell phone number, and when I go ahead and log in the next time, it's going to send me maybe a text to my phone. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as Joe with Joe's password, and then I get a text to my phone with a certain code that expires in 5 minutes.
Right. Plug that in.
And you plug that in, and then go ahead and log in. That's my kind of something I know, which is my username and my password, and then something I physically have on my possession, which is my phone. Right. So they can sometimes some of these vendors will have an actual app, authentication app, and it has like a little numbers that cycle through every minute or two, and you just pop those in. So just keep that in mind. It's definitely a best practice for any accounts of any sort of value that you use in personal and private life. Okay, so in this case, they're asking for too much personal information, so don't give that kind of stuff out. So now we've got the new topic of...
Yeah, one more item. Before we switch over to that malware, there was one other item that I thought was very interesting. To go onto that website, if you end up there by accident, and you're still not sure if it's authentic, is to give a fake password and see what happens. Can you describe that for a moment? So we go back to the phishing example from Citizens Bank, where they're asking for a whole host of information. One of the items that was suggested, which is, if they were asking for a password as well to log in, and you feel that that website's suspicious, and actually I think it was on the First Banking one, it was on the Chase Online one, is to actually type in a fake password and see what happens.
In that case, you don't want to give any sort of information away that that's putting in a fake one. It's going to kind of validate, right? If it accepts it. Accepts a fake password.
Right.
What's going on?
Then you got yourself a real problem.
you got yourself a problem there, right?
Right. All right. So malvertising. Here's a new word. I was not familiar with malvertising until just recently, and it's on the rise. What the heck's malvertising?
So this is kind of legitimate websites, like this example in New York Times, that the hacker basically, they have advertisements that are running on these legitimate websites. Of
course.
Right? That's how they make some money to, sustain that website presence, right? Or, manage their online store or whatever. So in that case, what hackers are doing is that they go ahead and, I want to buy some advertising on your site, please. And they'll go ahead and submit their advertisements, and they actually have malicious code within the advertisement. And so what ends up happening is that someone, clicks on this particular advertisement and just infects themselves with a malware unknowingly at that point.
So one click and done at that point.
One click, that's the kind of, we talked about this kind of drive-by download before, where you're clicking on a malware-infected website link, or in this case an ad, and then infecting yourself.
Yeah, I'm worried now. I'm worried that New York Times or SF Gate or Yahoo, for that matter, if I'm on the website reading news articles and such, and ads are there off to the top or bottom or the sides or what have you, I'm to the point now, after hearing about malvertising, where I'm just not going to click on ads, period. Is that what it's come to?
Well, okay, let me just back up one sec there. So if I click on an advertisement that has malware infections on it,
yes.
Typically the way the mechanism is that I have on my computer, I might be running, Flash.
Okay.
Flash. And that's the typical vector at this point. Like a large majority of these kind of malware infections on websites and stuff is kind of due to Flash and having old versions on your computer and not keeping them up to date. So Flash is becoming one of those kind of programs that, it's the part of like, a website experience that kind of gives you kind of like some dynamism, a little bit of, got moving stuff happening on the screen. So it makes them a little more multimedia-ish, become more dynamic. And so Flash enables a lot of that. It makes websites look cool, right? But the problem is that if you don't keep your Flash and stuff up to date, hackers are kind of leveraging that and using that as a way to kind of infect your computer. So, I guess the take home from that is if you don't need Flash and you don't want the fancy kind of website, kind of views, get rid of it.
Remove the Flash.
And that's going to reduce the infection rates. If you are going to, if Flash is important to you, then just make sure that you're updating that on a frequent basis. And if you're in a business environment, make sure that your IT provider has put in some sort of third-party update. Because this is not something that most users have sometimes the ability to do. Or, they'll get a little icon in the bottom right, hey, update me now. A lot of times they don't do that. Right?
Okay.
So, you want to have some sort of kind of automated update mechanism for, Acrobat, for Flash, for Java. Just like you do like Windows updates every month or Apple update every month, to update your operating system. Likewise, applications that you're using on the web also need to be updated, and if they're out of date, it's allowing the malware to infect your computer.
Okay, so let's transition. Okay, Flash exploits and redirects, and then the users get infected.
Okay, so yeah, this is happening with more frequency now. So some kind of larger names, Huffington Post, Rotten Tomatoes is a movie review site, CBS TV, New York Daily Post, even Match.com for those that are looking for a date. Malware has gotten infected and ads have been infected. Malware ads have been posted on these sites. So it kind of gets to the point where, like, okay, well, what culpability does the website operator have here? Because obviously, what kind of checks do they have in place to make sure that their websites are clean? So there's a lot of things that most legitimate, larger players in the space are constantly checking their sites for malware infections. But this is something that kind of comes up, comes down. It's like fast, it gets remediated, gets cleaned. But for that window of time that it's online, people are subject to potentially getting infected. Right? So, but you might have seen, like, especially for like e-commerce sites where you're buying something online, they may have a little kind of brand or a little stamp of approval near the bottom of the site. It'll say like hacker safe, or trust seal, or like we scan daily. So those kinds of things are to kind of give the the purchaser.
Right, I'll feel a little bit more.
A little bit more comfortable dealing with this particular vendor because I know that they're keeping their sites kind of up to date with their scans.
That's an important takeaway.
Yeah. All right. So how we talked a lot about multiple layers of defense, and so even with multiple layers of defenses, this stuff is still infiltrating, right? So looking at the screen here, we got like 93%. So what this is basically telling us is what percentage of malware infections attack against you have still managed to succeed with these various defenses that you've had in place. So for in the first example, 93%, 93% of people that have had a malware infection had antivirus of some sort on their system.
Wow.
Right? So then as we start going down the line here, okay, well the next bucket here is email and spam filter. So of those that had antivirus and spam filter, 77% of them still managed to get an infection. The next section is patched and updated applications. So this is along the lines of Acrobat, Flash, and Java that we were talking about earlier. 58%, even by keeping all those things up to date and patched, still have had a malware infection. Next line is ad and pop-up blockers. And then the last line is cybersecurity training. Even with all of those items, 14% of companies that even had cybersecurity training and awareness program have still managed to get some infection.
And a good IT partner is going to help a business out with each one of these particular items.
Right.
Right?
So it's getting to a point where the kind of traditional kind of security layers that we've put in place for the last 5-10 years are kind of starting to outlive their usefulness because this type of infection is able to kind of navigate through. And it's a kind of a dynamic variant type of thing. So so what's happening is that virus vendors, they're trying to move towards more of what's known as a kind of a behavioral-based kind of model. So what does that mean? That basically means if I'm the virus, antivirus agent that's sitting on your computer, I'm looking for what your computer is doing. So, hey, because when you think about what ransomware does, there's certain kind of telltale signs of certain actions that the ransomware takes that are more kind of behavioral based. It's like, oh, it writes to this particular place. It's this particular process on your computer runs, and it does some weird stuff. And so it's kind of like these telltale signs. And so next generation antivirus vendors are trying to move towards this kind of behavioral model. So they're basically just, what is the computer doing that's anomalous? and then flagging it at that point. So it's more about what the computer is doing rather than some definition signature that it has to match in order for it to get flagged. So it's a little bit more kind of real-time monitoring, right? So we're kind of moving to a day where, you know, the typical kind of implementation is going to have some real-time monitoring component to it.
But we're not there yet.
We're moving towards that.
And even when we are, the bad guys are still going to be able to figure out. It's a game of cat and mouse, right?
At the end of the day, it is. You know, it's like if someone, just to be frank, let's just put it out on the table here. This stuff isn't going away. It's kind of like, you know, if governments can get hacked, any of us can get hacked. If you're targeted, it's really, really difficult to kind of keep that at bay, especially if you don't have any sort of real-time monitoring in place.
Right.
You know, if the hackers target you and decide they're going to get you, you know, you can have all the defenses that at the end of the day, you're still potentially going to be a victim to that. So, but the idea is like, well, that sounds kind of powerless in one sense, but on the other hand, you know, the chances of that or the prevalence of that is it's pretty low. I mean, it's like, you know, getting hit by a bus versus, you know, walking down or whatever.
Right.
It's the prevalence is low. But I guess the take-home point for everybody is you want to stop the casual folk, and you want to get the low-hanging fruit kind of cleared off, and not make yourself vulnerable to low-hanging fruit type of infections, and kind of, you know, have a good baseline in place that has multiple layers, and that's going to prevent the vast majority of infections.
Well, let's transition to our next slide here. Lockout cybercrime. Cybersecurity is everybody's business, and I think the big takeaway here, and you know, I think it's been stressed throughout this webinar, is to educate and communicate. You know, educate and communicate within the office, to talk amongst the group. Let folks know what is going on, and most important, do not open or click on sketchy attachments. I have a feeling that nobody wants to be the one inside of a business that was responsible for allowing that ransomware to infect the entire office.
Correct. Yeah. So, you know, to that end, like, you know, just as you mentioned about internal communication, if a suspicious email comes in, you know, at that point, talking to your coworkers, hey, did anybody else receive that? You know, hey, I'm going to flag my IT manager. I want to flag my you know, IT director, a higher up. Hey, you know what? I think this might be a malware or a phishing attempt. I just want to alert everybody. I haven't clicked on anything yet. Just alert everybody, because, you know, chances are these things tend to go out in kind of large numbers because they're kind of more indiscriminate.
Yeah.
Chances are that other folks in the organization have also received that message as well. So internal communication is really big to helping to prevent the overall infection.
You know, and it's a great form of risk management. Of course, having an insurance policy is a form of risk management, but not the form of risk management. And this reminds me a lot of workers' compensation and the fact that, you know, for businesses having team huddles on a regular basis to talk about safety issues in the workforce is a big deal. It's to the point now where having team huddles to discuss cyber threats in the workplace is equally as important for the organization. So let's talk about some prevention action steps.
Yep.
And number one, step one.
Okay, yeah. So again, we kind of alluded to this already. So having multiple layers of defense. So, you know, you're going to have your antivirus and your spam filters and all that sort of stuff. But looking into the kind of next generation stuff, which is like the kind of DNS filtering and next generation antivirus. So you want to talk to your IT provider, talk to your IT director, and start implementing these multiple layers. And that's going to, you know, provide enough blanket coverage to help prevent and lower the infection rates.
And a good IT partner like Intivix, what are you going to do here?
So, yeah, I mean, part of it is, you know, maybe we'll get to that in the next part here, but let's talk about, you know, the next step is, you know, as we talked about earlier, if we're not going to pay ransoms, then we're going to, if we happen to get an infection, we're going to have to restore from backups. And we need to have a reliable method of restoring, and it has to be quick, you know, depending on what your downtime calculator metrics tell you as to how much of a risk downtime is.
We need to be back up immediately.
Yeah.
I imagine most businesses need to be back up.
I think, you know, ideally, yeah, you know, but it also comes down to like a budget, you know, kind of thing too, right? Security training is also very important for all employees. They need to understand, because like they're kind of like they're the front lines. they're the ones that are getting these, attempts and phone calls and, phone scams and all that sort of social engineering type of stuff. And so we want to basically elevate the base level of knowledge of all our folks. Implement strong Windows policies. Again, a lot of stuff can be reduced by taking away administrator rights on your computers. Most businesses, I've come across many businesses that still run with administrator rights, and that just allows the stuff to just kind of execute and run. And it's not a great practice, especially these days, given the.
So it's going to run so much quicker through your system, right?
Yeah, so it's pretty dangerous right now to be doing that sort of thing. We'll look at kind of some next generation remote access tools. So we haven't really talked about this too much, but this is another way that infections can occur. I can be on my home computer and I connect over a VPN connection to my office, and I can be transferring files and things like that. If my home computer gets infected, the malware is smart enough, the ransomware infection is smart enough to basically look for any network shares that I'm connected to. So it's going to go across my VPN link and it's going to infect my server. So I can actually infect my server from my house, and I'm doing work remotely. So there's kind of some new generation, a new paradigm kind of products that are very targeted to provide very quick access to your data files in a secure way. So check out my work drive, and we can also, for people that are interested in that, I can talk about that offline.
So then I guess we can transition to how to recover from a malware attack. I mean, the first thing I'm doing is I'm calling my IT partner. I'm calling Intivix. But the other tips, don't pay the ransom as we had discussed.
Yeah, we're gonna restore our files,
yep.
Our backup solutions that hopefully we have in place that have kind of hourly snapshots, very quick response, and hopefully I'm not going to be able to lose much data, right, or any data. We're going to leverage some cyber insurance. I'll talk about that.
Right, and that's important to understand. It is important to understand that no two cyber liability policies at this time are created equal. In fact, a lot of them are vastly different when you compare coverage forms. And coverage form, of course, is what you're buying. That's the most important piece. And as I had mentioned earlier, ransomware is starting to work its way. Both ransomware attack and business interruption from a ransomware attack is starting to work its way into some coverage forms right now. But again, as I stressed in the first webinar and as I stressed earlier today, having an insurance policy is a form of risk management, but not the form of risk management. Next point here.
Next point is where does your business stand? So you can get a threat assessment, and basically that's going to take a look at your current baseline. What do you guys have at this point? Where are the gaps? Are your systems really backed up? Where are you at risk? And then from once you get that threat assessment, making an action plan to kind of get those gaps, fixed, to go ahead and lower your overall risk. Went ahead and evaluate some cyber liability offerings as well. Maybe you want to chat on that a bit. Joe, if you want to add to that, okay. And then receiving some ongoing maintenance. So again, kind of this idea of kind of managing your systems. It's kind of like an ongoing thing. Just threats change. The solutions need to be flexible and change over time because they need to accommodate and block the new threats as they evolve. So it's one of those things that's going to be this kind of an evolving process, right, over time. And then, here's our emails. If you want to reach out to us directly, we're happy to assist you guys and give you guys more information.
Almost time to announce our winner too.
It is, and let's see. I think we talked about our magic number was. Our magic number was
whoever registered in the 7th slot. Excuse me, not registered, but logged on to this webinar in the 7th slot was going to be the winner.
Our winner here is Diana Barova.
Diana, all right.
Diana, congratulations. We'll be emailing you that your special redeem code and get you your Office 365. So congratulations on that.
Outstanding, excellent. And we got a teaser here, right? As we wrap up, we need to tease and say to join us on Wednesday, November 16th at 11 a.m. This will be the final installment of our 3-part cyber webinar. And the final topic is going to be about real risks of mobile technology, both as individuals and both the risk, not only to the individuals, I should say, but also the risk to the business as well with the mobile technology.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about some myths about mobile security and kind of educate you on some of the current threats and vulnerabilities that most people don't know about at this point. So please join us for that, and we'll be sending out invitations for that.
Excellent. Well, on behalf of Rob, I want to thank everybody for joining us on today's webinar.
We open up for questions. Yeah. So I got.
We have some questions.
Yeah, I actually do have a question here. So Robin asks, if you are sending data offsite for backup, can that backup site be affected also? So if you have a ransomware infection and it's infected your server and you have backed up that information and it's replicating offsite, yes, you are going to do that. So the idea is to kind of catch it soon enough so it doesn't get to that point, and that's where like the kind of next generation solutions are able to provide more protection, and the multi-security posture helps protect against that. And so the idea is to kind of catch it soon enough and prevent that from replicating off-site. But the other part is the archives that you have also give you some additional backup as well. So let's see if we have any other questions. Would you send us the presentation? We would be happy to send that out, and Diana asked that, so we'll send that out as well. All right.
Excellent.
Thank you all very much. Actually, let's see, we've got one other comment. Sarah Vaughn, we like the phishing examples. Yeah, thank you. So that's, kind of give you guys kind of a real world kind of example. That was the intent there. And give you guys, some kind of actionable steps as you guys, hopefully we're going to be preventing this because you're being so vigilant.
Yes, indeed.
So thank you all very much and appreciate the time and effort. Talk with you all soon.
Thank you.